Welcome to Breezin with Bierman, the podcast, a Princetonian Now Media Group production. As always, our job is to educate, entertain, and inform you, my people. You can find Breezin with Bierman, the podcast, on New Pod City, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Stitcher, and we keep growing. Now we're on Amazon. Also, don't forget the Princetonian Now Media Group or Breezing with Bierman Facebook and Instagram pages. There's so many ways you can find us, and you should, because we're going to have provocative, insightful, and hopefully entertaining talk. As always, our job is to educate, inform, and entertain. Today's guest, we're doing wicked politics, folks on politics. Bob Carson, the famous Bob Carson, MMA fighter, Politico, and everything else. I just got it. Sounds like, okay. He's joining us by phone. As long as it sounds audible, I'm okay with it because Bob's on the street doing his thing. Bob, what's up? How's it going?
Yeah, I appreciate the introduction. I think we'll use some air quotes there for some of the titles, but I appreciate it. I tried to do this from my laptop and it wasn't working, so I'm here on my phone. Hopefully, we don't have too many problems. But I got to tell you, Adam, I'm really excited about the topics we're going to talk about here today. I think it's great. I'm passionate. I'm ready to go, and I feel we can have a real invigorating discussion on this.
Before we discuss the topics, this is our first show again. What is your political evolution? If you can give us the elevator speech. When I joined, you were at Rider University in New Jersey, and I remember you were almost like a Marxist to me, some anarchist. I mean, where have you gone from those 10 years to today?
I'm an independent. I would describe myself as an objective observer. I'm not a zealot. I'm not ideological anymore. Not one size fits all. On many issues, I'm independent. Some issues I could be considered more radical, maybe when it comes to the economy and whatnot. But they say as you get older, you get wiser. So.
I guess more extreme measures, thoughts get mitigated. Sometimes you have to go all out for it. And that talks us to what we're discussing today, and who knows where we might go. Woke politics, midterm elections, vaccinations. That just touches on a lot of things. We have to also throw in what I'm for, the infrastructure bill. I'm not even an expert on the economy, but I think the only way we can get Americans back, maybe together slowly, is to mitigate economic anxiety and maybe provide jobs. What do you think? And continue from there.
Absolutely. And that's very, very important. I think both parties can agree that we need to create jobs. The only question is how do you go about doing it? The Republicans always go with the supply side approach where you incentivize businesses, you give businesses preferential treatment, arguably cut red tape, provide tax incentives, and that goes about spurring the economy and creating jobs. I don't agree with that. This is where I may be considered in some circles as more radical. I believe we're a demand-driven economy. The more money that people have in their pocket, workers, people like myself, people like most Americans that live paycheck to paycheck, the more money we spend, and that creates demand in the economy. And there are ways that you could create jobs, especially today in the digital age where the job market is vastly different than it was when I was growing up. I mean, completely different. But there is types of government spending that can be done that can create jobs along with consumer demand. That can spur new markets and create a lot of jobs in the economy. The infrastructure bill, I've always been a fan of infrastructure spending. And I think I haven't followed it probably as closely as you have, but I think one of the quarrels between the Republicans and the Democrats is what is considered infrastructure. What are we talking about now? But if you're talking about basic infrastructure, roads, highways, bridges, let's not forget the history of this country where government programs put people to work, created an infrastructure in this country that desperately needs to be updated, and that can create jobs, and that can create arguably growth in the economy.
Yeah, and also I think a lot of those things in Biden's plan is also environmental, more sustainable, environmental friendly, from wood to metal that can last a long time. Also, again, getting back to that divide, we have such a toxic social media and even cable news network atmosphere right now, and where people shut down and don't listen to each other. I think one thing again that can mitigate that, when people have jobs, when people can wake up, they have dignity, they can put bacon on the table, and their time is occupied. I mean, I think you literally go crazy. I mean, those are the people who voted for Trump. I mean, it's again, I always said it was more nuanced. You could find Trump reprehensible, but I knew people who voted for him because he said he's the only one who addressed what they saw as bad trade deals and being chronically unemployed, even though they played by the rules and always worked hard.
Yeah, when we talk about jobs, I think this pandemic has sort of taught us a lesson about jobs. We have the government pandemic assistance program and the federal unemployment extension, and along with the state unemployment programs, which for people like me were very, very good and certainly adequate to address my needs. And now one of the arguments to be made against unemployment, and we've seen several states that have stopped the federal unemployment extension, is that people don't want to come back to work because they're getting more money on unemployment. And in some cases that may be true, but what that shows us is that people are no longer willing to work for $9 an hour, $10 an hour, which was the case when I was coming up, when I was a teenager. People want a fair wage relative to the production, relative to the cost of living out there, which is why we've seen many states raise the minimum wage, including New Jersey, to where it should be. We haven't had a federal minimum wage increase since I think '97, and that's an important point. Is that they have to be good paying jobs, and the jobs that we're seeing now that are being created are in the delivery sector, the technology sector, so on and so forth. So that's an important point too. Is that the conversation has shifted as far as what American workers are willing to receive when they're working in terms of pay.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. I'm not an economist, but I tend to believe, though, first of all, you get a lot of numbers. Some people say if you raise the minimum wage, there'll be less jobs. Is that really true, though? It's hard to know what to believe, to break through the clutter. Both sides can hire, especially I think more to the right, can hire their own think tanks with manufactured ideology and numbers to try to scare the process and what people's perception. But I believe that I think at the end of the day, God, we're such a rich country. And no one discusses the military and the NSA. I mean, I'm all for defense, don't get me wrong, but they just have, that's the biggest welfare. And so why can't we find a way to get some basic, like great minimum wage and also some health care, which is another big debate, and give a baseline and work that out and find ways to fund it, dedicated funding. I for one, I'm more like, when I talk to people out in Missouri, I'm like, when I think about Biden, just throw this out there, make this work, get this passed, even filibuster, Democrats voting, Republicans against it, and then figure out a way to pay for it and stuff. And because, it's hard. I think there's some Republicans in the economy who want to pass, in my opinion, this stimulus bill and the infrastructure bill, but they get a lot of heat from right-wing media, and then they fear not getting reelected. Have I made sense? I said a lot in about 3 minutes, but did I make sense?
I agree with you, and I've always subscribed to the notion that where there's will, there's a way. If there's political will to spend money, depending upon a lot of different reasons, it'll get done. Defense spending. I agree. Listen, I've read a lot about this over the years. There's very, very good authors. Dean Baker, others, David K. Johnson, talk about military spending. How it's in disguise. It's not up for debate. Our military, and Bernie Sanders came out years ago and said, we've got $2 trillion missing out of the Pentagon budget. Well, yeah, absolutely. I'm sure you can't audit. It's almost impossible to audit. It's behind closed doors. What military spending, defense spending exists. Now, the other things that are on public display is welfare, government programs. That's something that people visibly see. They visibly see the so-called welfare queen and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Collecting money. Not that they don't exist, but to the extent that it's a problem.
But they exaggerate the negative, which is bad. Reform, of course, and stuff. And I think fundamentally in this country, our mentality has to change too. People, without digging deep, when they hear about even welfare, it's like someone getting something for nothing, and they're just taking advantage of the system. But we can invest proper. I think one thing about liberals, though, they forget when you have huge programs like Biden's trying to do, you have to then be accountable, and they have to pretty much find a way to make them work. And I know it's a hard job. Just to say
Well,
it
you
and
know
want to
what?
do it.
The government, and this is one of the things I disagree with the right wing media is that the government stinks. The government stinks, and it's turn everything over to the private sector. Listen, the government has a role in our economy. There are several government programs and regulations that we rely on, whether we like to admit it or not. Let's
Of course.
about it. Try to cut Medicare. Try to privatize Social Security. Try to mess with unemployment in difficult times like this, and you'll see a rightful, necessary political backlash. On the other hand, listen, I don't want the government, making my sneakers or making my, my iPhone or whatnot. So there's a mix. It's a mix.
And overregulation, and overregulation, and make sure that you have some kind of forensic accountability that programs are trying to deliver. And these are, you have big programs. So the government has done Social Security and Medicare, and state universities until recently have been getting less money. I mean, that's the thing. Reform. Just like police, we get to the woke problem. I mean, the mentality, defund the police. Who the hell would say that? No nuance, no common sense. Just stupid. Your comment on that?
Yeah, I agree, and who makes the most sense of this is James Carville has spoken out recently about this. That this is, we've got a midterm election coming up in 15 months, and there's a backlash now. There's been a backlash on the speech police, the wokesters out there that really only represent maybe a sliver of the American population.
I keep on hearing 15% of the Democratic Party.
Yeah,
but
that's
they're very
right.
active.
I mean,
they're very active on Twitter.
In certain circles in Manhattan, certain elite, college circles, Manhattan, Boston,
Princeton.
maybe
Some people in Princeton.
Right, exactly. But listen, this is creating a backlash. There's an ad campaign now against Coca-Cola. They're calling it Woca-Cola now with their, try to be less white training. There's also, a lot of stuff going on at the school boards that are trying to stop, implementation of this woke agenda. And ultimately, Trump could ride this. I mean, if this becomes an issue, if this is still an issue, 15 months from now, or even the next presidential election, he can ride this again to the White House, because as Carville points out, I don't know where he got his numbers from, but according to James Carville, Trump only lost by 42,000 votes.
Yeah, he keeps on saying that 42 in key electoral precincts, 42,000 votes.
Right.
And stuff. And also a lot of it's true. What helped blacks voted, like in states like Atlanta and South Carolina, Georgia and South Carolina, the minority vote got out really good. But what helped put Biden over the top was white educated males this time. That enough to put him over the top, who voted, a lot of them were Republican, but voted downstream. They voted all Republican except for president. So it's pretty precarious at the same time. And the woke people, again, it's devoid of common sense. Woke communists, which I'm not, but they do bring up issues that later on become more mainstream, like treating black people like human beings. That gays aren't demonic people, that maybe we shouldn't discriminate against women. But then, in the elite circles, it becomes myopic, insular, and they focus on things that are not really priorities. I mean, a Coca-Cola, I'm not much into conspiracy. It's a costless gesture. They can use this whiteness training, which sounds completely insane, but they can use it to purge some people. At the same time, they don't have to change practices that might be negative towards working people, that might be exploitative. No, I'm not saying that. I haven't done a lot of research. So in a way, it's a good cover for them. It's like the costless gesture. Bench ain't Aunt Jemima. Don't show the Disney film Snow White because she didn't give consent to be kissed by the prince. That stuff actually happened. And then go on and do other stuff that's not as, should I say, ethical towards working class people.
Yeah, people, I think the elections come down to a handful of states now, as we're seeing, when we discussed the midterm elections. And I just think that to push this agenda, push this narrative. And we're seeing this; it's not stopping too. I mean, we're seeing this now. Now there's talk in the NFL of having a so-called black national anthem after the American national anthem. And so all of this stuff, honestly, is dividing a lot of Americans.
Yeah, it's you have to show political savvy and show some tactics and some common sense and not be so self-righteous. I mean, liberals to me used to be they were into ambiguity, they were into nuance, they were into fact, but this so-called like woke elite, it's dogmatic, it's pious, and and everything comes down to race to them. Oh my God, like no one else has any other part of the human experience. So just it's opposite of what Martin Luther King wanted. I agree. They got to stop. We have to silence them. Midterms are coming up. Sorry, go on.
Well, this is what look, you've been following politics and you know a lot. But this is like almost like a backlash. I remember when Obama was elected, and the Tea Party arguably was a white backlash against Obama and against the changing demographics of America. Now we're seeing like a black backlash against those that are perceived to be the oppressor and whatnot. And both it's wrong. All it does is serve to divide us and ultimately. Again, Americans don't subscribe to this. Americans are not zealots. We're not, ideological. By and large, Americans are fair-minded people that will make their opinions up when it comes to issue and by and large reject labels. But if everybody's a racist, if everybody's this, that, sharks. Now there are activists that have come out and want to ban the use of shark attacks because it stigmatizes sharks.
The parody becomes facts, but it becomes facts. I mean, one thing I have to say, anyone out there, and I do it in my community sometimes, you have to stand up because they become bullies, and you have to stand up and sometimes expose the silliness and expose, should I say, the misuse of bandwidth on topics that don't address the real needs of everyday Americans. Let's go to, and that takes us to vaccinations. This is heartbreaking. This is really stupid. I mean, you can have questions about vaccines, but from what I understand, and again, we've had 100 million, whatever, most people are living. Even if you had questions before, people are now getting sick, spreading it and dying it, I think, for no reason. And I do blame here Fox Media, Fox News and other type sources.
Well, what's interesting is that supposedly now COVID cases are going up now in states, many states across the country, and what's driving that is unvaccinated Americans. And I think this is almost like a cult too. It's like the anti-vaxxers. Look, we can have a discussion about that. I mean, people are distrustful of the government. I understand that people are wary of the process. Although I do think you got to give President Trump credit for Operation Warp Speed. He doesn't get credit for that. I do think that he
correct with that.
The government again.
Warp Speed did well. The rest of his response was horrible, but Warp Speed did work out.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, look, I mean, we got to be fair. I totally agree with that. And that's an example of the government helping business to create a vaccine. But it was rushed. And this has never been done before. But people have their questions about the side effects. There are questions. I understand. They're legitimate questions. Let's not get into conspiracy theories. Let's not get into this dogmatic thinking where if you don't take the vaccine, then you're killing Americans. On the other hand, if you do, it's going to be a mind control, and there's going to be a chip implanted in your brain through the vaccine. All this stuff. Let Americans decide. I agree. Let's have Americans decide based on their body, based on their health, and I just find it funny is that HIPAA, medical privacy. In certain universities, you have to take vaccines. When I went to Rider University, you had to take certain vaccines.
The public good against individual rights will always be tension. But when hasn't it entered? I would think, and again, I don't have all the facts. From what I understand, this has entered. Well, I think we have to really incentivize people to really take this vaccine, even if do it by saying they can't get their college loans or something. I think it's met that criteria because I feel it proves it will save lives and stop the spread. then your individual rights or thoughts should not intercede into public good. It is a public health crisis. That's what I think.
Yeah, and you got to take it by an individual basis too. Like, we got the Delta strand that's supposedly driving up all these cases. But listen, I had COVID already, okay, and I had it earlier this year, and I got tested last week, and I'm negative. I am not worried about it. Most people that don't get vaccinated are not worried about getting COVID, getting this new strand, because either they have a strong immune system. They're in good physical condition. I don't know. But let's not mandate it. But the government has incentivized people to take, to your point, these vaccines, giving out free donuts, giving out free this, a chance to win $1 million, this and that. And look, I understand that. But let's allow Americans to decide whether or not they want to take the vaccine. Let's not
maybe you're right politically. Maybe it wouldn't work,
Yeah.
but we do seat belts. We do other things. I just think this is a major crisis. And also, if you want to talk about economics, I mean, we are paying for people, like when people smoke, for their bad habits. I mean, I just think that right now the facts are there. Now, in 10 years from now, is my brain going to disintegrate because the DNA? I don't think so, but they had to rush it because there was going to be an economic collapse. I mean, that was part of the factoring in. Obviously, we had to get people back to work, and of course, we haven't even discussed inflation. How all this, the spotty recovery. Demand not meeting supply not meeting demand, et cetera, et cetera. Any comments about inflation?
Well, I see it. I've seen it. I know family members and friends that are business owners that unfortunately are having problems with their supplies because of the cost. The dollar has really almost devaluated. Gas prices, all of these different things. You see it. This is another issue that people, I think, don't understand. I think it's kind of like, they don't see inflation right in front of them, but it does exist, and it is a problem. Politically, I don't know how much of a problem. Listen, for all my criticisms of Biden and whatnot, we have a midterm election coming up in 15 months, and despite what the right-wing media likes to think, the partisan media circles, at the end of the world is coming, that Biden's the worst president in the world, this and that. I don't see it at all. I don't see an administration running amok, and I don't see too many political problems, at least now, for the Biden administration. Yes, there's been problems with the border. There's been problems with gas prices and inflation, but overall, I don't think this is really going to. It's sort of been like a slow and steady administration, thus far.
Well, yeah, I think what I think, just from a political end, they're trying to throw everything at him to see what can stick. That's
right.
what, unfortunately, I mean, you do that in politics anyway. It's just become more polarized. I don't watch MSNBC that much, but I watch CNN from time to time. I mean, they're biased, and sometimes they're preachy and dogmatic and everything, but at least they kind of deal in facts. Okay, in the final 5 minutes, muses, comments, predictions. What's pissing you off? You pick any one of those.
Yeah,
besides
man.
Definitely
partisanship, definitely woke culture, definitely, some of the people that are charged up, that are, engaging in identity politics. Identity politics, I think, is destructive for individual growth. And when you're in a country like we are, individual growth, I think, I mean, just using my own personal life is paramount. This is what Reagan espoused. Liberty and individualism and the can-do mentality and whatnot. And today, in today's culture, everybody's a victim. Everybody's offended. Everybody wants to go after you for retweeting something in academic research, or you offended me. Therefore, we're going to come after you. We're going to take your job. It's the cancel culture. I don't like it. I think it's unfortunate that people engage demonization. I don't want any type of demonization. I don't want the police demonized. I don't want athletes demonized. I don't want George Floyd demonized. I don't want anybody demonized. Let's be a fair-minded society. Let's take out the partisanship and the anger and the yelling, and let's be honest about the problems that we face and the solutions, and go forward united. I know that's easier said than done. I know it sounds like a platitude, but it stems from leadership, and it can be done. I firmly believe that Americans are more united than divided, and whatnot. But the media doesn't want that to
Yeah, they need ratings.
really,
Ratings are
of
important. They have to
course.
pay for their salaries. I agree too, though too. And I mean, educate yourself a little more nuance to your thought. I understand that compromise is essential. Our founding fathers wanted slow democracy can be slow. They really, I mean, everything has to go through many filters even before you pass a bill, and accept compromise and move on. I mean, I don't want. What's the famous line? It's true with politics. You can't have perfection be the enemy of progress in that sense, and get what you can get with a bill. Because my prediction is the infrastructure bill will pass. Maybe it will pass. Jobs will start. Inflation will be coming. I don't know how long it will last. I don't know if it's going to be supply having to catch up to demand, et cetera, et cetera. But no, people have to get back to work.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's be honest. The government has a role in that. The private sector has a role in that. Individuals have a role in that. We all do. This is a great country. I love America. I really, really do. This is, the land of opportunity. I think for those that have the right mindset, there's a lot more than you can achieve than you think you can, and whatnot. And so, we just need to look out for the partisans and the zealots, and whatnot that exist really on both sides that stop us from making progress. There used to be a time in America where compromise wasn't a dirty word, where you had leaders of both parties that would come together and say, I may not agree with you on this, but I agree with you on that. And so, if you give me something I want and I give you something you want, we can pass legislation. And ultimately, we can make people's lives better. I want to see that. I want to see less, political polarization, and I want to see more solutions, more legislation. I mean, look, this happens both parties. When Obama was in office, there was a record number of filibusters. People forget about this. His federal appointments were blocked by Republicans. There was this culture of chaos in Washington. And now, look, the Senate is divided 50-50, but you still have, basically a party line government, and that's wrong.
And
we have to
I have to cut you off there, though.
Is.
I have to cut you off. We're at 1 minute. Yeah. Give political cover, get things passed. I still think the right wing is still worse than the left, but I'm talking about the media. But yeah, if everyone listened to us, things might be better. But this has been Breezing with Bierman, Wicked Politics. Bob Carson, can I have you back in a month and let's discuss and see what's happened?
Dude, I had a good time. I really, really love talking to you and talking passionately about these issues. And it would be an honor, man. Let's do this as much as we can and see what happens, man.
Let's set a date. Okay. This has been Wicked Politics. It's been Breezing with Bierman, a Princetonian Now Media Group presentation. And we'll be back.